early on, I knew that passive income was the way to long-term wealth. See, I look at how wealthy you are as how many days you can go without having to work. Now, there's two sides to this equation. If you spend a whole lot, you're going to need a whole lot of passive income to make up for that. And if you don't spend as much, you won't need as much passive income, but you've got to make sure that it's enough to cover your standard of living. Well, how can you go about doing this? Well, when I first started, I knew real estate was the way to go. And I read a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And this book, I think, has changed a lot of lives. Now, I know Robert Kiyosaki gets a lot of controversy of, is it real? Did he really have two dads? All that type of stuff. All those guys are simply missing the point. It doesn't matter if he had two dads or didn't. It didn't matter if it's a fable or a myth. It doesn't matter, because what it's teaching you is how to invest and how to take things into passive income so you can live as long as possible without having to work. That's financial freedom in my book. Okay. So what did I do? Well, I said, you know what? I'm going to start buying some real estate. So I did. I bought my first duplex when I was 21 years old. I turned it into a threeplex. I remodeled it, mostly myself. And then I kept buying properties. I became a real estate agent. I became a real estate investor, and it just kept going. But one of the things I did is in my shower, I laminated a piece of paper. It was laminated. I'm going to show it for you. I still have it to this day. It's on my... I put this in the shower, and basically it was a chart. I just did it on Excel. It was like one of those little thermometers, right? And what I did is over here, these would all be $100, 100, 200, 300. So every time I bought a property, I would come in and say, okay, this was McCall Street, and this was Jordan Valley, or whatever the case is, whatever the property was, and I'd reprint that out, and then I would come in and I would color that in and say, okay, we got all the way up to here. We've got 300. Our goal is whatever, 1,000 or 2,000 or whatever the case is. So I looked at that every single morning, and my whole goal was, how can I increase my passive income? How can I go about doing that? And as I did it, I would adjust my targets. I would put it back in the shower, and I would look at this thing every single morning. One of the other things I really enjoyed is this game, Cash Flow. This is a learning game, and I can tell you it has helped me, it has helped my kids, and it has changed my life. I know that sounds like a big statement, but I don't say that very often. So this is the game that's called Cash Flow. Make your money work harder for you. That's the whole concept here, so you don't have to work hard for your money. That's the whole concept with all of this. Well, let me tell you, with this game, it's basically all about what's called getting out of the rat race, okay? So you can see we use this game. This isn't just like for show or something. We actually just bought this one for our office. Okay, so with this game, the idea of this game is everyone is a mouse. And what you're doing is you're going around this board and you're trying to increase your balance sheet. So they talk and teach about income statement and balance sheets, okay? Which is basically how much money are you making, how much money are you spending, and what is your monthly cash flow left over after you do all those things. Well, what happens at the beginning of the game is you draw a card, you don't know which one it is, and you get to be one of these, an airline pilot, a police officer. Now that's gonna make a determination as to how much your salary is and how much money you're making every month, and it's gonna start you off with some expenses. Now you learn a lot of lessons from that. And then you start playing. You keep going around the board. You'll get a paycheck. You'll get an opportunity. You'll have the opportunity to invest. You'll hit doodads where you've got to buy things. But there's one thing that happens before any of that, and that is you get a piece of cheese, and you put a piece of cheese on one of these dreams that are actually on the outside that go all the way around. Let me give you a few of these. Some of these dreams are, let's see, a park named after you, a private fishing cabin on Montana. Let's see, what do we got? African photo safari, a mini farm in the city, a Mediterranean cruise on a private boat, being a jet setter. I mean, there's all kinds of things here. So one of the things that I didn't realize is how important it actually was to have a cheese out there. I think one of the reasons for that is it was so difficult to get $100, then $200 in passive income that it seemed insurmountable for me to ever get to the cheese. So when I played this game, I just would say, heck, I'll just put it anywhere. It doesn't really matter. Well, I can tell you right now, it matters. Because it matters for your motivation what to do. Now, when you first get started with this, it's hard and it takes a long time, but then at a certain point, the tide starts to tip. And I think that's about 10 years is where you see the tide start to tip and you really see that snowball running down the hill if you're doing things properly. So that's one of the things. Well, I am excited to tell you that I have bought my dream. Let me tell you about it. Okay, so I hesitate to even get into this because I don't want to come across wrong or come across like a scumbag or anything else like that. But with the encouragement of a lot of friends, they're telling me, hey, tell your story. People really want to hear it. So here we go. I started out knowing I wanted to be an investor. I didn't start out trying to be a real estate agent or anything else like that. I wanted to be an investor because I knew that's how long-term wealth was developed. And fortunately, I was able to start at the ripe young age of 21 years old when I bought that first duplex. I bought that duplex. We bought another house a few years later, bought another rental house a few years later, and we just kept on trying to buy rental properties. Every time we had extra money, we would put it towards buying rental properties. We lived on less than we made. Now, luckily, we decided to go into real estate where we were real estate agents. When I say we, my wife and I. In addition to that, I did mortgages, like traditional mortgages. So every single night, I would spend time on the phones and I would manually dial and call renters and ask them if they wanted to sell their property. Every night, I would manually call and dial renters and ask them if they would be interested in buying a property for the same amount of money they were currently paying in rent. Well, seemed like a no-brainer. So we would get people, we would help qualify them for a loan. We'd go up and we would sell them a property. Now, we did that for quite a while, and then what we started realizing is the life of a real estate agent is a little bit stressful. You've got evenings and weekends. You don't really know where the next paycheck's coming from. You're getting calls all the time. So it really never turns off. And so we were still in the process of acquiring properties and getting our property portfolio growing. It was for the point where there wasn't a lot of cash flow. I can tell you cash flow comes over time as rents go up. And then what happened is we started doing some fix and flips, but I was too scared to do fix and flips. So I went and found an investor and I helped an investor find a property, but he also had to sell that property with me and I'd make a commission on both sides, which worked out really well because I didn't have to deal with any of the problems during the evenings and weekends like most traditional real estate agents need to. Well, we did that for a while, and one day my wife came to me and said, hey, I found another great deal for one of our investors and I already know the investor. And I said, wonderful, who is it? And she said, he's tall, he's handsome, he's got blue eyes, brown hair, and he's sitting in this room. I guess that's me. So we went to the property. I was scared to death. I had a hard time finding anybody that would have funded it. It was up to the wire. We almost pulled out 18 times and we had the courage to move forward. That courage decision has changed my life today. It's changed my life forever, frankly. And I'm so grateful we did that. We started doing a bunch of fix and flips. We continued to buy properties. We continued to live on less than we made, which is a big thing. I tell everybody you've got two jobs. You've got your day job to put food on the table. Then you have your retirement job where you're preparing for the future. Now, one of the ways that you can make that retirement job a lot easier is if you take money, some sort of money that you're making from your active income, and put it over to your passive income bucket where you're buying investments that are going to be paying you for time to come. So that's the whole goal, and the longer you do it, the more successful it will become. Well, guys, I've been doing this now for over 20 years. Over 20 years I've been doing this. And with that, I've started to see the tides turn. About 15 years ago, my wife looked at me and said, you know what? I'm really glad we bought those things because it was really difficult to buy those properties and there was bad things and late nights and issues and you name it, stuff came up. But we persisted through those. We held on to them. We went through the 2008 crisis, real estate meltdown, whatever you want to call it. We came out the other side and we're better because of it. So here's the deal. since I was a kid, I loved boats. I just did. When I was 16 years old, I bought a little sea swirl boat. It was the one that kind of had the unihull. Let me see if I can find one. So I bought a boat, looks pretty similar to this. You don't laugh at me, guys, but this sea swirl's in 1974, probably about the same age as the one I bought many years ago when I was 16 years old. And you can see here it's listed for like 250 bucks. Like, come take this. So it has these kind of the double hull there. That's a sea swirl. Yep, this is like, I spent my winter fixing this sucker up and trying to get it in good condition. We even put a little a thing on the back to help pull up a skier because I was so excited about this. And having this boat, yeah, has little outboard engine there. So this was a sea swirl. I bought it when I was 16 years old, and I thought I was on top of the world. Super excited, saved my money, was able to do that. I started a few businesses when I was in high school, and it's kind of just gone from there. So then what happened is I ended up selling that. I ended up, my parents ended up buying a boat. I ended up moving out of the house. And then what happened is we were working and we were doing real estate deals and everything else. We ended up buying another property that we moved into, and it was in a neighborhood. And I was helping out a youth group. And with this youth group, we were going on a little camp out, and I was super excited about it. And so one of the things the leader of this group said, hey, I'd really like the kids to be able to do something fun on the water. And I said, well, why don't we rent some jet skis? And he's like, great idea. Let's rent some jet skis and we'll go have some fun with that. So I went and found them and rented them and then took them down. Now, when we were there, we had a great time with them, but the leader of this group said, hey, I want to teach all the kids a lesson. So he rounded us around them and he said, hey, we want to return these things better than we found them. So let's wax them, let's clean them, let's do all this stuff. And so we've got all these kids learning this lesson from this leader about how to return things better than when you actually found them, okay? Well, I went and returned these skidoos, and guess what? A few days later, I got notice that there was damage to them. Like, are you kidding me? There's no way there was damage done to those. We took such great care of them. Well, I don't think there was damage done to them, and I don't know if the guy was just trying to scam us or rip us off. But in the end, we just decided to pay it and move on with life. But it did something for me. It ticked me off. And it ticked me off to the point where I said to the leader of this group, I said, we're not doing this again. And I went out a few weeks later and I bought a boat. I'm like, hey, we need a little ski boat. We're going to take these kids. And for several years, I taught kids how to ski behind a boat, which was so awesome. I loved every minute of it and loved being on the water. We had that boat for a lot of years, had a lot of memories, got stranded twice with it. And then we said, you know what, enough is enough. We were down in Lake Powell with some great friends of ours, and we got stranded because of something with the boat. And I said, this is it. I'm getting a new boat. I ended up having to borrow a buddy's boat to tow it over. We got it on the trailer. We went home and I went on the search for a new boat. So I ended up finding a Sea Ray Sea Deck down in Las Vegas and bought that boat probably about 10 years ago, which I still have that boat today. I love being on the water. I love everything about it. Well, let me tell you a little bit more about my story here. Sometime in the real estate days, I came across this blog called Bumfuzzle. These guys basically lived in Chicago. He was a pit trader in the stock exchange or whatever it is there. And guess what? He decided that they had had enough and they sold everything. They bought a sailboat having never sailed before and started cruising around the world. Well, that's not it. Their journey doesn't end there. You can see they started with a sailboat and then they went to a Porsche and then they went to a van and they went back to a sailboat. Then they went to an RV. Then they went to a camper and now they're on, then they're on a trawler and now they're in this bus. So you can see, and their kids have lived this way. This is all that they know. Now, it sounded exciting, right? To have the opportunity to just jump on a boat and circumnavigate the world, that would be awesome. But I'm also a responsible person, and we're like, well, what would we do? So what I decided is, you know what? The first step for me is to go out there and see if I even like this. So first thing I did is with one of my entrepreneur groups, we rented some catamarans in the Bahamas. We went out, we went sailing, and I loved it. It was so amazing. I thought it was the best thing ever. I loved feeling that wind. I loved being out there. So I'm like, okay, this is really awesome. Well, that didn't help the cause because I got more interested in this. Ended up going and getting a bareboat sailing certificate where we went and sailed and did those things. I was trying to tag my wife along so she would hopefully get excited about it. And then we went and booked a trip to the British Virgin Islands. Now, with this trip, it was kind of a trip of a lifetime, and we were super excited about it. The problem was we rented a catamaran, but we had to get a captain because it was such a big catamaran. The captain had to be there, which was fine. I did some of the stuff. He taught me some stuff. I learned. But what we didn't like is in the evenings or anything else, or if we went out to dinner, we were having to take care of making sure the captain gets fed, and we could be out on the front of the boat having a nice time. The boys are in bed, and all of a sudden the captain's right behind my wife and I while we're trying to have a romantic moment. From that moment on, I said, no way, I am not doing this again with another captain. So a few years later, we ended up buying a sailboat, fixed up the sailboat, and then sold it. Glad we did. I still had this bug. I really wanted to do this boat thing and didn't quite know. Now, originally I thought we'll buy a sailboat and we'll take some time and we'll go around. We'll live off some of that passive income that we've had coming in, and it'll be a great time. But then I'm like, well, my kids, they need to go to school. I want them to have a normal life. I don't know if that's the best thing. And so then I said, well, what if we started taking some summers off? And so over the past few years, I've been taking about a month off during the summer to go and do something really cool with my family. Sometimes it's worked out and sometimes it hasn't where we've been able to go, but we've gone multiple times and it has been amazing and something I will remember for the rest of my life. Now, because of this passive income and because it afforded me the opportunity to do some of these things, I've been fortunate enough to do some of these trips, which have been absolutely amazing. YouTube started in 2005 and became more and more popular. And then you had people that were filming and going out on boats and doing that type of stuff. Well, small problem. My wife would get seasick when we go on cruise ships occasionally. And so that kind of put a damper on things. Well, last few years, I have been threatening to buy a boat. It's been something I've wanted to do for a long time, but my wife did not like the idea of sailing. So last year, we went down to Fort Lauderdale and we went to the International Boat Show. We ran around, we looked at boats and everything else, and we came into what are called power yachts. It's something that we hadn't thought about before because the price of gasoline or diesel, it can get really expensive. They just burn through the gasoline. But the interesting thing, or diesel I should say, the interesting thing about them is you can go really fast. So in the time it would take you to sail from one place to another, your powerboat could get you there in probably 25% of the time. So if it was a 4-hour journey on a sailboat, it would be like a 1-hour journey on a powerboat. So then we got to thinking, what if we went this direction? It's going to be a little more expensive, or a lot more expensive than buying fuel, but since we have a limited amount of time to go in the summers, let's see if we can get places faster and not spend as much time on the sailing portion of that and not have to deal with the sails and everything else. Well, this sounded like a dream come true for us, but we were pretty nervous. So what happened? Well, we started looking for some things after I talked my wife into it, and we looked and we looked and we looked. Well, we finally started to decide what types of things we would be interested in. A big shout out to Brian. A few years ago, my wife and I were going down to Cabo. When we were flying down to Cabo, I had the aisle seat, she had the middle seat, and a big guy came walking down, had a huge fishing shirt and had one of those, had a gold, chain of a fish. I don't know, it was big, marlin or something. So anyway, he's like, yep, I'm sitting next to you. So he sat down, and the first thing I looked over and I said, you fish? He's like, oh yeah, I fish. I'm actually going to Cabo to fish. I've got a boat in Cabo and I've got a boat up in Seattle. We started talking, we got to know each other, and what did I find out? Well, I found out that he was a real estate investor and he owned real estate up in Canada. And that's how he was able to afford and able to do these things. And so we talked and I told him about my dream of being able to go out on a boat, to go out on the water, to do these types of things. And he said, hey, why don't you guys come over and check out my boat? So we did. When we were in Cabo, we took a couple of hours. We went down to the marina. We checked out his boat and everything that had to do with it. Now, keep in mind, Brian's boat is all about fishing. Like, that's it. The couple of weeks before, he was in Australia from the time we saw him in Cabo, and he was fishing in a tournament there. So this is something that Brian just absolutely loves. Now, I like fishing, but I'm not a diehard fisherman like that. So that kind of put a bug in our ear. So when we started looking, I reached out to Brian, shot him a few texts and said, hey, what do you recommend? What don't you recommend? What are some things that you should consider or not consider? First thing he said is buy a Caterpillar. Get a Caterpillar engine. Now, whatever you do, get a Caterpillar engine. They are the best. You can get parts anywhere for them. Buy a Caterpillar, you won't be disappointed. So I said, okay, I'm gonna buy a Caterpillar. Second thing that he said is you wanna buy a diesel engine. Diesel engines are meant to run and run and run, where gasoline engines have the combustion and they're not going to perform the same. You're not gonna be able to do as much. Now, originally we said, hey, we'll get just something kind of small. We were originally looking for something that was maybe, 35 feet, something in that range, maybe 40 feet. And so we spent nights and evenings and weekends looking at boats and looking at everything. And really at that point, we were just window shopping, just kind of window shopping. And that went on for maybe a year or two where we were just kind of window shopping and looking for things. After we went to the Fort Lauderdale boat show last year, things started to get a little more serious. I guess when we were out there, we just realized we could actually do this. Like, could be a reality for us and we could really do this. So we started looking for used boats. Now, of course, as you know, I bought a fixer-upper, and we've had to do all kinds of things to this boat. So we've spent a bunch of money in the engine room. We spent a bunch of money where we're getting new carpet installed and new flooring and new new vinyls, and the list goes on and on and on. I can't even tell you how long the list is of things that we've done to this boat. We bought it at the end of December of 2021, and June 13th of this month, we will be flying out to take it down to the Bahamas. Let me show you a few things about it. This is my boat. It is a Sea Ray 48. It's got two dual engines. Let's see. I don't have a lot of great pictures of it. This is my boys on the dock. There's a picture of my boat. There's a better picture of it. This is kind of looking out from the cockpit. This is back on the aft. We finally named it. We named it Real Nice and put Salt Lake City, which is where we're from. This is the new flooring we put in. That was already there. This is our dinghy, or rather you should say tender. There's a lift on the back of the boat that goes into the water, comes out of the water, so you can drive this thing on and drive it off, because honestly, that's how you get places when you go to other places. This is my wife, and this is kind of the inside. We got all new upholstery done on here. We've changed out all the lights in here. It's a work in progress, guys. There's just a lot to do, but we have really been enjoying it. And one of the things that I did is said, hey, we've got to get t-shirts, we've got to get shirts, we've got to get hats, we've got to get all this cool stuff. Now, this is my boat pulled out of the water. We have now painted it black on under there, and all of the canvas outside is going to be changed to black. So we're going to be black and white, because those are some colors that we really like and stand out in a great way. Why do I share this with you? Well, I share it with you because this has been a dream of mine for over 15 years. I didn't really realize that that was the cheese that I put on the cash flow game, but it really was. And this year, it's going to become a reality. Now, I share this with you not to brag or boast or say how great I am. That's not at all. Actually, I've done the opposite for years and not shared these types of things. But like I said, with some friends that encouraged me, I'm sharing it. Now, just so you realize, it's not like I was irresponsible, got a big loan, and went crazy on this. Like, I've been very fiscally responsible. We've been working on a real estate and passive income for over 20 years, and it's really starting to pay off. If you would have bought 10 houses 20 years ago and know what they're worth today and what rents went up, that was a really good thing. It's blessed my life, and it continues to bless my life. So that's why I'm sharing this, and I want to take you guys along with the journey to see what we're doing and how we're doing it, because I flippin' did it. Okay, now let me show you what the plan is. This is Florida. My boat is up here in what's called Destin, okay? There we go. So that's Destin. That's where my boat is. We'll be going there. We've got a little bit of work we're going to do. We're going to do a little more training on the boat with some captains. And then I am going to be taking the boat with another captain. And we're going to go from Destin over to Apalachicola. Okay, we're going to refuel. We're going to spend the night there. And then from Apalachicola, this is kind of our big day. We are going to go to Clearwater, which is here. So if you want to see, that's like Apalachicola to Clearwater. This is like a 10 or 12 hour, and we call this blue water because you are not going to see land for 12 hours. Now, I'm sending my kids. My kids are going to stay, and my wife are going to stay in Destin for a few days. So they have to do this big crossing, and then they're going to fly into Key West. Now, from Tampa, or sorry, from Clearwater, we're going to work our way down to Fort Myers, and we're actually going to take the inside passage so we can get some more practice, so I can get some more practice. And then from Fort Myers, we are going to make our way to Key West. So from Fort Myers, we'll probably come through Naples and then hit our way to Key West, which is right here. Now, what happens from here? Well, we are then going to kick the captain off the boat, and me and my 2 kids and beautiful wife are going to start this journey of a lifetime. So we're going to start in Key West. We're going to spend a few days here. We're going to spend a few days in Marathon. We're going to go to Duck Key, and we're just going to work our way up Key Largo, North Key Largo. We'll come in here in Biscayne Bay, and we're not too far. We're obviously going to stop in Miami. Honestly, the only reason we're stopping there is because we want to blare the Will Smith song Miami as we're pulling into the marina, which I'm sure the marinas are pretty tired of hearing that song by now. But we'll do that, and then we'll make our way up to Fort Lauderdale. Now, in Fort Lauderdale, we're going to stay at the Balamar, which is actually where the International Boat Show was that really we went to last year, that really put us on this journey. So it was like a really cool experience to be able to go there. Then what we're going to be doing is joining with a group that is, they call it the Boat Fling, where they get multiple people with multiple boats, and they all go together. It's sponsored by the Bahamas Tourism, because they want to encourage people to be coming there, and they want to do that safely. So what we're going to do is we're going to join a group of a few other boats. I think there's 15 boats or 20 boats. We're going to leave Fort Lauderdale, and from Fort Lauderdale, we are going to come to Freeport. And I actually think I'm doing this all from memory, guys. So anyway, we're gonna be coming somewhere in here. Then we're gonna stay with that group. It goes to a few different places, and we end up in Marsh Harbor, which is right over here. Then the group starts to make its way back over this way. So what you can see here is this is called the Sea of Abacos. Over here to the right is a whole bunch of islands, and to the left you actually have this big island, which makes this really protected and a great place to be, especially when you're on a boat. So this comes down Tahiti Beach, these places. So this is where we're going to be playing. And I come back, we'll be coming back to Marsh Harbor to pick up my mom and Neil. They're going to be joining us for a few days, and we're going to go off. And from there, it's like we don't know where we're going. We're going to just throw out anchors. We're just going to have fun. If we need to come back to Marsh Harbor, we will. I don't really know where we're going to end up with that journey. So then getting closer to the end of our trip, we're going to be coming back over to West End. And from West End, we're going to have to make the jump back to the United States, where we're going to hit West Palm Beach. Okay, zoom in here for West Palm Beach so you can see it. Now, once we hit West Palm Beach, what we're going to actually be doing is we are going to be going through the locks, and we are going to be going to Lake Okeechobee so we can make our way over to what's called La Belle. Let's see here. Hopefully we can find La Belle here. Maybe. Yeah, La Belle. Port La Belle, Florida. This is where our boat, this is a hurricane hole, and that's where our boat's going to be sitting for the next 6 months. So we actually are going to make our way from West Palm all the way to Lake Okeechobee. From Lake Okeechobee, we're going to make our way over here and eventually to LaBelle, which you can see, this is the path we're going to be taking. I'm assuming we'll go this way, and you can see this is the way kind of coming out. So let's just come out just a little bit, guys. So literally, we're going to start all the way up here in Destin, come all the way down to here, all the way up, back over to the Bahamas, and back over and here, and then we'll be flying home out of Fort Myers. It's going to be a 9-week journey. This journey has been made possible by real estate investing, by living under our means, taking that money and investing it to income producing things that would bring passive income, that would help grow our income and net worth over time. We got started early, we put the time in, and we're reaping some of the rewards. And I feel a little embarrassed to share this because this has been a dream of mine for a while and I haven't shared it with a lot of people. So sharing this in the open is a little bit different. But I wanted to tell you why I'm so passionate about real estate and why I know real estate can change people's lives. And if you're interested, I'll take you along with the journey as we go through all these amazing places and tell you what it's like.